As you all know, not only was Messiah accosted, abused with excessive force, he also went to jail and spent the night in jail after having to go to the hospital. And he has criminal charges. And so what we know is that an African-American man that has been arrested, it impacts their life choices, their life options. So the very arrest of Messiah he's going to have to deal with the rest of his life. And so with that, this family has reached out, and we have been able to secure one of Atlanta's finest criminal defense attorneys who volunteered to handle the criminal matter pro bono, Attorney Gary Spencer. And you all would know Attorney Spencer from the Basil Ellaby case, the I-85 bridge. Gary was a part of that legal team that secured Basil Ellaby from what looked like certain incarceration. And so I'd like Gary to come up and speak briefly about the criminal charges and what he and his firm will do in representing Messiah regarding the criminal charges. Gary?
Good afternoon. We are thankful that there was technology, quite frankly. It seems as though many of these cases turn on whether or not someone had a video camera to show what happened. We are here to help Messiah get through this without any sort of future problems on his record or anything like that. And I want to talk to folks who have been calling me and other people about what I can do. Well, this is your time to learn about anti-racism, quite frankly. And so if you want to know what you can do, think about your ability to affect change in an anti-racist way. And I don't mean just individuals, I mean structures, because we all know that the fact that a black person might run a corrupt system doesn't make the system any better. But we are here to help Messiah, and we thank you for being present as well.
Thank you.
During yesterday's press conference with the mayor and the chief, they both apologized. I'm curious to know whether your clients accepted that apology or have a response to it.
We'll take questions in a moment. I'd like for Messiah and Messiah's father to speak briefly. And I'd like to say I made a decision about wearing this Black Lives Matter. And I decided to wear it because right now in America, and for the longest, black lives have not mattered. And what we saw happen to these young people, again, underscores the reality. And I want to double down on what Attorney Spencer has said regarding anti-racist work. Our issue is not a couple of bad apples. Our issue is that there is a culture and is rooted in white supremacy, it's rooted in Black lives not mattering, and that is what the work that is required to be done, and that, in all reality, has to be done largely by white citizens. And they have to embrace that work and decide that white supremacy will not be the order of the day, that it will not be the pillars that hold up the American way of life. And until that's done, we'll keep having these press conferences, we'll keep having good, promising young people traumatized by this system. And so we want to be crystal clear that as we fight for justice for these families, that we're also encouraging our white citizens to step up and engage in that anti-racist work to dismantle, to confront white privilege and white supremacy. Those are real, and they manifest themselves with the loss of life, the loss of options for our young people, for our children. And so when we see people going through the street with mayhem, everyone is so appalled. And everyone was applauding the police restraint. I think you should applaud the restraint of black people to have gone for so many years and been restrained. And now that some are no longer restrained, It is a matter of what we've been experiencing for too many years. And so these young people got caught up in a whirlwind, a perfect storm, as Mr. Young has said to me, regarding a setting of a curfew, then the militarization of the police force with the backing of the National Guard, with people who were not focused on how our young people get home safely, but instead making sure that they were going to get theirs back after squad cars were set on fire. So people got hurt on Saturday, not just property. And we as a firm are putting people over property, and we hope that the rest of America and the rest of Georgia and Atlanta will embrace that concept. Put black lives over your property. And until you do, folks will continue to rise up. We want to be very clear as it relates to these young people. We could say unequivocally, if you're protesting in their name on what happened to them, they want it done nonviolently. So we want to say that unequivocally. So all of the young people who are out there, if you are protesting in their name as to what happened to them, they're asking that you do that nonviolently, because what they don't want are any other young people exposed to the criminal justice system the way they had to be exposed. And with that, I'd like to bring up Mr. Charles Young, the father of Messiah Young, who's traveled here from Chicago, Illinois. Mr. Young.
Good afternoon. Peace, everyone. I come to you all in peace. First off, I want to thank my wife, our family, our extended family, the city of Atlanta, our family here at Morehouse, our family here at Spelman, the entire CAU for, number one, just embracing us. Number two, you did a lot to soften the blow, and that's very important. Third, I want to thank and absolutely acknowledge Messiah's young sisters. Someone spoke a little earlier about going out, trying to enjoy your day, and coming back home, and having the feeling of being through a war. Kind of imagine that, right? Imagine that as a parent. Imagine that as sisters, 3 young sisters that he has. That, for me, is the reason that we're here. We are fighting a war, right? It's a war of the mind. Mm-hmm. It's a war against a culture. It's a war to change a culture. But in addition to that, we've got to be strategic. As you said, black lives do matter, but there's a value put on these lives. There's a value put on the lives of every original person walking around that's under a threat. And we absolutely have to change that mentality. And we will. As you see, we have birthed somewhat of a revolution, somewhat of a war. There's a revolution of a mind happening, and there's a ton of friction. There's a war happening. We are strategizing for a war, a mental war, right? An opportunity to change the culture. I say this all the time. My wife's a teacher. She always talks about an opportunity for training. That's exactly what this is, an opportunity to train the mind. The mind changes, and then the physical changes after that. Understand that. Understand the importance of that, because without that, as my brother said, this is going to continue. We don't want to predict it continuing. We want to predict it changing. We want to put a limit on it. You got to put a limit on it. We've all got deadlines. This way of life, this culture, it's got a deadline. And that deadline is screaming right now. That deadline is screaming around the world. And it's quickly approaching. So please, I would ask everyone here, everyone that's aware of these issues, aware of these problems that exist, aware that in this world, in every nation, in every individual lives an opportunity to be retrained, an opportunity for change. But you have to understand that the value of that change. Without that, we're headed nowhere. Thanks.
with that, we'll have Messiah Young, a rising senior here at Morehouse, and as you can see, raised by two fine parents who love him as their oldest and only son. Messiah?
Greetings to you all. First and foremost, I'd like to start by saying how grateful I am to the entire Morehouse community and the entire Atlanta University Center, Clark Atlanta University, Spelman College, and Morris Brown as well. In this time of injustice, it feels good to know that I have a support system that understands the severity of this and understands that change does need to come. Secondly, to all the institutions worldwide, to anyone aware of this problem, aware of the mistreatment, the hostility, the just wrongdoing of what occurred on Saturday. To everyone that supports that and understands, thank you. It truly means something to me that I have a backing, you know, because honestly, this has probably been one of the hardest things that I've ever experienced in my life. With that being said, you know, it's great to know that so many people are aware of this. And at the end of the day, it's a blessing that I'm alive and here to talk with you, here to express just everything that's occurring at this moment. And that will continue to occur. This is a long fight. This isn't just about me. This isn't just about us. This is an entire generation that has to deal with brutality and injustice and wrongdoing for nothing because of the color of their skin or simply because what they preference, or like my father said, originality, you know? So at the end of the day, I am just very thankful for the support for you all, and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Chris and I are here to take any questions. Our clients won't be answering any further questions.
Mr. Davis, the charges that he's facing, what are those charges? Because I was under something that they were dropped, sir.
Well,
Either one.
we want the reason that Attorney Spencer has been retained and brought on is to ensure that not only are the charges dropped, but the arrest. And you want to speak to that?
Right. I mean, obviously we want the arrest expunged. We want to make sure that he has that nothing should follow him from this because he did nothing wrong. And so that's what we're here for.
But the charges were dropped, is that correct?
Well, we don't have the documentation yet, but we trust that that's going to happen.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. But the record expunged, the arrest record.
Yeah, that's the big part here.
Thank you, sir.